So, like, I've written a lot of stories this year, and I thought it'd be pretty good to look back on them and, you know, discuss them and everything. They're pretty much all Cyanimation stories, since that's been, like, my theme of this year, apparently. It's just been my writing thing. But I think it'd be fun to look back on my stories this year and just, you know, talk about them. You know, talk about them and, you know, some stuff in them, maybe how I wrote them, maybe some inspiration for them, I don't know. Just some stuff, you know. I've written a surprising amount this year, as I've already said, and I think, you know, I thought this video would be cool to make. It's gonna be longer than I initially thought, but, you know, you know, that's how it seems to always go, so. But, you know, there's not much more for me to say other than, yeah, we're gonna start. I'm gonna use some pictures in this video, probably, and those pictures will definitely be from Cyan, so thank you in advance to Cyan. Why am I laughing? Alright, the first story to talk about this year was A Young Girl in the Snake's Den, which is, if you don't know, it's a story I wrote that's like an AU story about Beatrice and Leisha getting an adopted child, Elizabeth, who they just call Lizzie. And basically it's about if they raised a child. To talk about, now that the synopsis is over, I get to talk about it, which is the best part about this. But I really loved writing this. I loved writing this. I wrote this in like a month. 50,000 words. 1 month. Probably not 2 out there. Maybe it's 2 out there. I don't know. I don't know how normal people write. But 50,000 words, 1 month. In the middle of the tail end of my senior year of high school. So yeah, I was just like, this was me sitting like on the floor of my, like, whatever my study hall was, because I was put into, I was in a football class, but football class in quotations, because he never made me do assignments, because I don't even know how to play football, so I just sat on the floor writing 24/7, and I just wrote, and this was like my passion project of high school, because I thought it was so great that, like, I got this idea of, like, hey, what if Beatrice and Leisha raised a child? Because I would always joke with Cyan about how they would be terrible mothers. So I'm like, well, how fucked up would the child be if they actually raised a child? And so this came into being. Very non-canon story, of course, but I feel like it's still important to my writing nonetheless. Yeah, it was very ambitious. It was gonna be even more ambitious, you know. It's already divided into 3 parts. It's like a 3-act story. But it was gonna be longer. It was going to be longer. I have my document of well, first off, I can say my document of things that I didn't use. It's titled Elizabeth Ideas. So that already tells you, because, you know, it's Elizabeth, named after Beatrice's, like, youngest sister. And that's originally her. That's originally where her name came from, you know. I'm like, oh, Beatrice has a child, so you probably name the child after, like, her favorite sibling. So it makes sense, you know. But there's some unused things from it. They're not really that much, you know, like, they're not really that great amusing, really. Excuse me. I'll show them on screen. But one of them is just about Leisha making a joke about, like, skies out, thighs out. You know? But yeah, you could shove that into any story with Beatrice and Alicia. It doesn't make a difference. Another one is just like Beatrice being spiteful about about Lizzie wanting to go on a date, you know. Another one is one that I wanted to use, but I couldn't find anywhere for where to put it actually. Like I really wanted to use it. It's Beatrice taking Lizzie into like her modeling job, and they take pictures together and stuff. And Beatrice gives her like this talk about how like they're taking pictures, and Beatrice gives Lizzie this talk about how Lizzie can have that body when she's young and no one's gonna care, but when she grows up things will be different, and then that obviously gets her down. But like then Beatrice cheers her up, being like, we're gonna pose, and all those girls are gonna eat their hearts out, you know. And it's supposed to be like this bonding moment that never actually happened in the story. Because admittedly in the story, Beatrice like gets emotionally bonded to Lizzie, not as fluidly as I wanted her to be, but you know, it would have taken place in probably part two, probably about part 2 or 3, definitely not part 1, part 2 or 3, you know, when she's like teenager. But yeah, it's supposed to be a really good moment, but it just never showed up. Now, the last thing I really want to talk about in terms of unused things that, you know, I didn't put in is there was gonna be a 4th part actually, with Lizzie as like a grown adult, like married to Sydney and like everything, living in her own place. Yeah, I only have a few things. One of them was Beatrice getting drunk. Another one was supposed to be Mother's Day. It was supposed to be a Mother's Day part where Beatrice gets Lizzie, or Lizzie gets Beatrice, you know, a gift that she cries over. And then part 3 is supposed to be Sydney asking Beatrice for her blessing to marry Lizzie. So that's always good. I've got notes, of course. Actually, adult Lizzie was also, she's supposed to get a snake like Beatrice. She's supposed to get a snake like Beatrice. It was like it's probably in my notes. A white-lipped pit viper, which is just like which is kind of like it's like a viper but like bright blue. It's like cyan colored, but it just looks really pretty. So I thought it'd be good. She named it Carrie after and I just named it Carrie after like Kerrygold like products. If you know what Kerrygold is, you know, good shit. But this is also the story where we'll come back to them later, but this is the first time like Ben and Sophie, Diane and Kevin's kids, make an appearance all the way back here in like May of that year. You know, they would be seen again. I wrote them and I thought, man, these guys have potential, and boy did they. Another one that makes a first appearance really is Violet, the adopted daughter of Jack and Sebastian. It's like she was Lizzie's best friend in the story, obviously, but you know, it's like she's just a character that I thought, hey, Cyan doesn't really use her, so like I can just use her however I want. You know? Now that I have more writing for this, like AU, right? They're just things I wrote after that I didn't plan to put in the story. But I'll still put on screen as I talk. But so this story was really, it was kind of personal to me, because like At the time, I was going through rough stuff with family, and I thought, hey, I can write this, and it'd be nice, you know. I could get out some stuff, but eventually it just started growing and growing, and before I knew it, in a month I'd written like a novel. But I really, Sydney and Lizzie are probably my favorite characters that I've created, hands down. Sydney went on to get their own actual comic by Cyan, so Sydney went places. Lizzie was also there too, so, in a panel. So, but we're starting off strong. This is probably my favorite one. Any other things I gotta think of? I don't think so. But yeah, we started off strong, and Young Girl in the Snake's Den. It was really good, and I'm glad I got to write this. Next one is a very easy one to talk about. It's the Study of Carvations. Study of Carvations book thing, you know, whatever you want to call it. Cyan made it into like a little comic with art and stuff, but I did the writing for it. I still have my doc for it. I wrote on a doc. I wrote it, but he's like, hey, can I like make this into a comic? Actually, it looks really cool. And I said, yeah. You know, it just goes over like some stuff about Carvations, you know, some stuff that we talked about. Me and Cyan talked about, and stuff that I made up sometimes. Like, because I kind of thought like, hey, Carvations are very interesting and weird, but like, people need to know about them. Like, but hey, there should be like some definitive place where people can read about Carvations to know what they're about. Like what they are, so they're just looking and say, they're demons. No, they're not demons. There's only one cheese demon. Oh gosh. But yeah, the Study of Carvations was really cool to write. Writing about things like their lifespan or their wings and vision and traits and their biology and some of their culture stuff. It's like, it was really cool, actually. I made up, like, all of it. Like I said, me and Cyan talked about it, and I made up, like, all of it. There's only a few things I didn't make up, like, that I had to ask him about specifically, like the soul-sharing ceremony. But even then, I made some stuff up for that one. Their language, that was entirely made up. That was something I entirely made up. Like, I actually have, for Cyan and I, this Google sheet, and you type in letters, and it'll tell you what it is in Carvation language, and that's what he uses for like if he needs to do like a language for like a story or a comic, you know. But I mean, you can also just translate the language from the chart that he has in his comic of it, but. No, it's really cool. The BMI chart in the health and nutrition section. No, that I also made that. I made that in a Google sheet as well. I do lots of Google sheets. But no, it was really cool. There's not much to say about this, honestly. There's no unused things. I just thought it was really cool to be able to do this, so that you can have a place where you can just read about, you know, Carvation things. Because it's kind of needed when everyone keeps asking him about Carvations left and right. And I'm like, I'm gonna just write something definitively telling people what Carvations are, especially the physical, especially like writing about the variants. I think that was a really cool addition I got to write, and I'm proud I got to write that. But I think that's all I have to say about the Study of Carvations. Alright, we're looking at every small thing that I wrote this year. So the next thing I have to write is the Pride Tales of the Afterlife mini thing that I wrote, which I don't think is even posted to Tapas, so maybe I can fix that later. But this was just literally something for Pride Month. Nothing very special, you know. Well, they're it's special in its own way, but I just decided, hey, let's just write some stories about, you know, some pride icons. Not that I would consider Beatrice a pride icon usually, but but you know, it was just fun, you know. Beatrice was Pride Princess, I think. Yeah. No, Beatrice was Pride Princess. Alicia was Pride Queen, as they should be. Another one was Ink Inside. This was something I wrote like months in advance, and I just reused. So yeah, just nice moonlight bolts. Whoa! Holy shit! I've been looking for this. The Avon's story. Avon's story. Her part. I've been looking for this exact thing. Holy shit! Cyan's gonna be so ecstatic later when I tell him it's been here all this time. Holy shit! I've been looking through docs and docs looking for this. But no, it's probably my favorite one. The Diana and Najaj one being the weakest one, but it's also about Najaj like chasing the Diana with knives because she thinks that's hot. So overall, it was fun to write. I need to tell Cyan about finding that Avon one. Next on the list might be the longest section yet, and that is keeping it together. Oh boy, what don't I have to say about this one? So, in essence, right? I finished this around August. It is the story, essentially, for Ben and Sophie, Diane and Kevin's kids. You know, I don't know if this is canon. I don't care if it's canon or not. It was because it was so fun to write. Like this was legit like the project this year that I spent the most time on, I think. I definitely spent more than 1 month on this because hot damn, it was really fun. But essentially about Ben and Sophie, Diane and Kevin's kids. If you want to narrow it further, it's about their individual struggles, kinda. Like that Ben gets problems similar to Diane and the fact that he develops bulimia, and then Sophie like wants and Ben looks up to Sophie so much, and Sophie doesn't think she's like a strong older sister, and she just wants to free herself from that responsibility so badly, and you know she goes out as a rebel at night, I guess, whatever, just does shit with like bad friends. It's how it is. It's how it is, alright? And that's in essence of this story. But you're about to hear my literary analysis on my own story. I mean, before I get into that, I'm actually just going to things that I didn't use. I didn't have a name for the story at first, so my doc for the drafting and ideas and stuff, it's just called Ben and Sophie Ideas, you know? The title was the last thing I wrote for the story. Some things that I wrote but never used. I have a lot more here than Young Girl in the Snake's Den. I have one that is supposed to be like a moment for where Robin gets introduced, I think, into the story, where Robin like bursts into their house and like tries to be like the cool aunt, and she goes to find Ben and he throws like a hardcover book at her head and she has like this bloody nose. So like it was pretty funny, but I just never ended up using it because Robin wasn't like a huge character in the end of the story anyway, so at least not for this one. The next one was Diane taking Sophie to Maria's house and finding out that Maria's mother is Lucille. That was supposed to be like a big moment. It's supposed to be like this shocker to her, and it's even more of a shocker later that Lucille's an absolute like airhead as an adult and not mean at all. The next couple are actually supposed to be from what I initially had Lucille as. So to give context, at the beginning Lucille was characterized different when I like gave conception to her like adult form as an idea, right? Where she was like still very like angry and nasty to people, but like only like in the context of she's very protective of her daughter. and she was also extremely homophobic. So, and her daughter being, you know, secretly lesbian, that's like yeah. No, the beginning of this section is like a this section is like Kevin and Lucille's wife, actually. No, her husband, not wife. No gay in that household, apparently. Lucille's husband and Kevin just like sitting on a couch as their wives argue, and Kevin arguing like the next room over about something, you know. I think it was probably about Maria and Sophie being like a couple, which never actually got introduced in the story, which I think is hilarious. I wrote a lot about that. I wrote a lot about Maria and Sophie being a couple in like the drafting, but I never actually wrote them being a couple in the story. And that they do become a couple, but like I never wrote about it in the story, which is funny. I hinted at it at the end, but that's it. But it's basically, you know, like Kevin and I didn't even have I did have a name for her husband. It's Scott. Scott and Kevin just sitting like on the couch as their wives argue in the room over, and Kevin thinks that they should go stop them, and Scott's like, you know, buddy, I've been through this, just let her argue out, you don't want to get in the middle of that. And then the next one is about Lucille like coming to Diane and Kevin's house and throwing a fit, saying that Sophie made Maria gay, and it made her keep secrets from her own mother, which she blames Diane's kids for. But somehow by the end of it, it ends up with Diane and Lucille going out to expose them to see if they're gay or not, which I think in hindsight is actually hilarious that it ended up that way, with Lucille going to their house being angry like that. But, you know, Lucille, like, I like how her final line, this is just, I rock the stay-at-home mom look like no other. Let's go expose those gays. Which is just, you know, I can't believe I wrote some of these things. And the next one over is actually like, it was supposed to be a section from Diane's part of the story, where it's her point of view, where it follows her at least, you know. But it's like Diane and Robin in Lucille's house, and Robin's just like, what's wrong with her? Because this is when I now characterize adult Lucille as the absolute ditz airhead. But it's her like going to the pantry and grabbing like pudding cups with spoons in her mouths and just going over, and Diane and Robin are just incredibly uncomfortable. And then the last one is just like, it's the character dynamic of like Robin, Lucille, and Diane bouncing off each other, and the fact that it's just Lucille making a fool of herself on a skateboard, and Robin absolutely eating that up, because Robin's so petty. Oh my gosh. She is so petty. That's it in terms of stuff I didn't use, I think. Now, to get into like the analysis, right? So the story is about Diane, or it's not about, I'm getting too far ahead of myself. It's about Diane at a sub-level. It's about Ben and Sophie. First off, their names are very at the forefront when it's from their perspective, as you may know. Ben having like no friends. Ben is like definitely semi my self-insert. Only semi. I can't say it's fully, but he's definitely took a lot of things from me. Being absolutely comic book obsessed, that was from me. Being comic obsessed was definitely from me. I thought it'd be really cool for him to just be like this comic book nerd, and then I never put much of it, but of him like complaining that no one his age reads comic books anymore. I think him complaining about that would have been funny if I had done that more, but I only made like maybe a passing joke about it. But I made him into like especially these like golden age heroes. Like, he's into Green Lantern, of course, but he makes the most references to Alan Scott Green Lantern, which was the the first Green Lantern from the Golden Age. Hey, so editing Kappa here. I talked for like 5 minutes about superheroes, and I'm not gonna edit that. So let's just say Ben really likes superheroes. All right, cool. Let's end it there. Why the hell did I talk for that long? That's it. Back to the video. The point is that he's this nerd. I think he makes especially all references to Green Lantern and Daredevil. Canon fact, Ben's favorite character is Green Lantern, followed second by Daredevil. He's this nerd, kind of shy, doesn't really talk. He's a writer and an artist, and so he likes to make his own little comic books when he's young like that. He grows up. He becomes an author, but he still likes comics. So his sister Sophie, extroverted, and by the way, Ben has more of a resemblance to Diane, but he actually resembles Bella a lot. I noticed in hindsight, he resembles Bella a lot. Sophie, on the other hand, resembles Kevin more. She's extroverted. She likes to go out late. She likes to do things. Kind of the opposite of Ben really. The whole thing of Sophie sneaking out at night was something that I thought of just playing off of how Diane would sneak out at night to exercise. Sophie, when she was a kid, Sophie sneaks out at night to go hang out with friends. Still things that they're not supposed to be doing. But getting to that, Sophie's friends are actually a short group, a small group of 5, which is generally how the high school girls tend to group. A strong group of 5 generally does it, with maybe a little bit more of a cohort to the leader of the group in the back, But she's got her mains. The main head of the group being Cadence Preston. Basically Lucille. I'm not gonna lie. She intentionally is described like Lucille to do a little thing called subverting expectations. Then you have Maria, who is actually Lucille's daughter. Maria Hawthorne, she's on the other hand short, not really chunk, but slightly larger than average. Not basically enough to carry. She wears the weight well of her natural body. Wears oversized sweaters, really thick oversized sweaters. Is positive and nice. Has dyed red hair. Is naturally blonde. So the point is that you're not supposed to think Maria is Lucille's daughter. You're supposed to think I think I'd make an illusion at some point that at the beginning somewhere I think I make the illusion somewhere that Lucille's daughter is at the high school with Ben and Sophie, and I wanted to make you think it was Cadence, because Cadence also I think talked about having rich parents who didn't care. I think maybe that wasn't something I put. I don't know. I scrapped a lot of things for this one, but yeah. The next one I put was the group was Megan Fike. She has no personality. She is just a yes man to Cadence, intentionally, just to have the one person who is just the yes man. She tries to dress like Cadence, always backing up Cadence, everything, just ultimate suck up. And the last person in the group was probably my favorite, not gonna lie, was Brittany McDonald. And Brittany is actually based off someone I know who always threatened to kick my ass, so you got your cameo, Brittany. 5'4", average body size, but buff as fuck. I have it in my notes, she'll probably bite your head off, but dresses in those jeans and t-shirts, black curly hair. I'm gonna say that's dyed. I'm gonna say her hair is normally red, but she dyed it black. That's her friend group. I've talked way too much about these guys. I have an outline of the entire story chapter by chapter that I wrote in a notebook at first, and then I put onto a page, but I wrote it while just shut in my room for a few days. I actually wrote it while my laptop was broken. My laptop was broken, so I wrote the outline on the on paper because I had these ideas and I just couldn't let them sit in my head, so I'd forget them. As for the story itself, if I only 15 minutes and I could talk about analysis of the story. So the story itself, you think it's about Ben and Sophie, and it kind of is to a certain extent, right? It's Ben's arc through struggling and then getting help. It's Sophie's arc through accepting responsibility as a sister and just sticking up to Cadence kinda, and figuring out she doesn't really need to be popular to be with her to be popular or whatever, and that's all nice, but there's like there's a plot going on of Diane's relapse as well. That's happening at the same time, and in reality, you're gonna laugh you might laugh if you've already read this. You might laugh or agree when I say this is actually Kevin's story. This is actually a story about Kevin, because it's called Keeping It Together, but Kevin's the one keeping the family together, right? He's the one going around having these tough talks with people. He's the one going around trying to make sure everyone's doing their job, and he's working all the time. Kevin just has this incredible strain on himself while trying to keep himself and the family together. And like, I think it's a character testament to Kevin. I'm playing this thought on Cyan, because I asked him to design like the cover for the like the thumbnail cover for the story. And he's like, you got anything you want it to be? I'm like, not really. But he's like, I think I got something. I got something. I want to do hands. I'm like, okay. You do hands, I guess. And he did hands. Really damn good hands. But then he gives me this piece that's like, it gets me thinking, right? Because all the hands on the right they're all Kevin. They're all Kevin's, right? They're all Kevin. But hands on the left are all different people. The one at the top being Ben, the one in the middle being Diane, and the one at the bottom being Sophie. And I just thought, it got me thinking, like, Kevin has been, like, every step of the story with them. And, like, damn, Kevin's trying to keep the family together and it's falling apart. And Kevin himself has, like, a breakdown in the middle of the story. I think in front of Sophie. Or in front of Ben. And I think it was in front of Sophie. That he has, like, this breakdown where he starts yelling. And, like, damn, I feel like it's impactful when I reread it. But the cover itself is amazing, you know. Ben accepts him, you know, with a hand, you know, open hand, accepts him. Diane's hesitant on letting him in to you know, take his hand, you know. And Sophie rejects his hand entirely, which I think gives kind of testament to what happens in the story, and the fact that Ben doesn't even put up a fight of saying, okay, I'll go with you, you know, I'll accept that you're trying to help me. Diane, on the other hand, like usually, you know, she says okay, but she's like not fully committed to it. She's not fully committed to the help he's got to give. And then Sophie wants to reject what he says entirely. But the story itself it's about the entire family, right? If you want to look at it, it can be about the entire family, right? But Ben's descent into bulimia, Diane's relapse, Sophie's self-discovery, honestly, I think. Yeah, I could count that as self-discovery. Sophie's self-discovery, and Kevin's struggle to keep the family together. Yeah, I think like, it can be about the entire family. The only thing I have to say is that I wish I could have had more Robin in the story. I really wish I could have included Robin more in the story. I feel like Robin was wasted potential. I needed more Robin in there. But the story was long enough, and like, yeah. But I think that I like this one a lot, and I wouldn't write it very differently if I had the chance. Alright, our next section of writing, Lucille's new friend. Now, this is an interesting piece to conceive in my mind, because let's be honest, nobody asked for a story about Lucille. Like, nobody asked. Absolutely nobody. I liked how I characterized Lucille in Keeping It Together, so I'm like, you know, I will follow this up with just a Lucille solo story. But then I realized the problem, and it's that nobody likes Lucille. Legitimately. She was made to be, and how deep can I go? She was made to be a character that just everyone fucking hated, because she was supposed to be like a direct antagonist, right? And just no redeeming qualities. Then when I write Keeping It Together, it's you see Lucille with like this kind of ditzy airhead kind of personality when she's an adult, and like you just don't know how to feel really. So then I write Lucille's new friend, which is like, it's like a firm, solid, confirming the characterization of Lucille, right? confirming the characterization and confirming like what she feels internally, you know, that, you know, she still feels like guilt over Diane, right? Over feeling responsible for Diane, and honestly directly being almost not directly responsible, like, but the Kickstarter for Diane's problems. She blames herself and Robin blames her, so the main draw of it was that it was character torture for Lucille. I don't know if I had fun with this one. Like it was good. It was good to write. It was entertaining to write. It wasn't like I didn't hate writing it. I'm like, yeah, I'm so enthusiastic about this. Can't wait for it to be out. I was just like, oh yeah, this is also a thing I wrote that I just happened to be able to fit into a release because it's just long enough. So the story overall is just Lucille, ironically enough, getting food problems, but like it's binging. So yeah, she does that and like kind of starts wrecking herself because of like almost in a sense of, because of loneliness. Her daughter's going to college and she has no friends. Her husband's at work all day, her daughter's at college, and she has like no friends really. Other than Diane and Robin, but you can let's be honest, you put that very loosely, friends, right? Robin does not even pretend like they're friends, and Diane is like, yeah, we're friends. Overall, the story is very basic. It ends at an open book, just to pick up for whether Lucille resolves her problems or not, you know. It all depends, right? Depends on what I want to do, right? And we'll get into that later. What I want to do. I've got ambitions. I have a dream. And as for, like, just overall the composition of the story, I have nothing I didn't use, actually. I cleanly outlined three distinct parts of the story that I wanted to do, but I didn't actually, like, leave anything out. I just simply went through and wrote it without writing anything in advance. So it's all clean, nothing left out. I don't think I have any ideas that I left out. No, everything was used, so I think that's it for this story, and on to the next one. Next one's gonna take a while. The next one is Carvation Vigilante, but like I'm just gonna do chapters 1 through 4 because I know chapter 5 isn't out by the time this video goes out. So yeah, just parts 1 through 4. I can actually start off by saying there's nothing that I left out of the story that I wrote. Like there's no unused content in this story, so you don't have to worry about that. I can talk about the story. That's how I thought up of it, I guess. So like I kind of thought up of this story, like it was just gonna be like this one-off story about this like really violent Carvation, because I thought it'd be cool to kind of like juxtapose the fact that Carvations are a peaceful race with the fact that there's this one who just like likes to, maybe not likes to kill, maybe likes to kill, yeah, who likes to do violence basically against things. And I think it's cool to kind of juxtapose that against each other, because on one hand you have like this preconceived notion on that Carvations are supposed to be peaceful, you know, they don't really do violence and all that, but then you just have him who's going out and killing humans because he hates them. The ones that deserve it, in quotations. It's like his version of justice, killing those who deserve it. The story is about Grift, a Carvation who was banished from the village of Carvations down to the living, into the earth, you know, because of something he did. I'm not gonna give huge spoilers in case you want to read it. This is stuff that you learn in like the first few paragraphs. So like I'm not spoiling anything huge. He gets banished from there down to the living, and he kind of hates humans because of things that I cannot spoil. But he kind of hates humans and likes to be violent. I'm not gonna lie, Cyan's art of him, he definitely, when he gets his act cleaned up, he definitely looks like Freddie Mercury, and I think that's hilarious. But the Carvation Vigilante story in general is apparently really good. Allegedly. Review-wise, it's gotten really good reviews. By reviews, I mean my, like, 3 readers, so So I at least appreciate you guys. Shoutouts to you. In general, the story has taken like a lighter tone, I noticed, near the end. Well, it's more like near the middle, because like part 1, it's kind of intentionally dark and a bit violent. It's because it's supposed to almost be like in kind of like a noir kind of style. Then when I did part 2, it's like a much lighter tone because it's in the village, you know, it's all happy. Part 3, they go back down to the living, and it's kind of darker in tone. Part 4, I would say it's maybe a bit lighter in tone, but you can't really peg it as like incredibly happy. Then part 5 is just, I don't know if it's dark, but like it's epic. Now I'll talk about chapters and specifics. So if you just don't want to get spoiled for this story, go read it. You can just skip to the next section of the video. And before I dive in, 3, 2, 1, yep. Okay, so part 2, the games, is actually, it's got an interesting story. Well, the story itself of that chapter is very dull and boring, I'll be honest. It's definitely the most skippable chapter. In fact, I would say you could skip the chapter if you really wanted to. Just please don't. But I kind of had this idea of like, Carvations are like this communal tribe thing in the sky. So they must have like many gatherings, right? They must have a lot of gatherings to do a lot of things. So why not one of them be like something that's like the Olympics? Like a competition for Carvations to compete in that tests their skills in different corners of their proficiencies, kind of. Because, you know, they got magic, but they also have like strength and endurance and all that. So why not do that? And that's basically what I wrote them doing. Where like, and at the end they have like a duel, you know? The final 2 have a duel. And I thought that was pretty rad. But in of itself, the story is very dull. But I do love that it introduces Griff does like yoga with these Carvation moms, and that's hilarious to me. That's hilarious. That's the best joke I've come up with yet. This is actually the point where Moon and Iris meet Grift, which is the only reason you might need to read this chapter. So it's a funny thing, actually, that the ending of part 2, it's kind of like, because if you fast forward to part 3, right? The end of part 3, I believe, it's a scene with Moon and Grift together, like on like, I think a balcony at night or something like a back porch or something. But it's interesting that was supposed to be at the end of part 2, and part 2's ending, I want to talk about part 2's. Part 2's ending was entirely improvised. By the way, I pulled that off in half an hour because I had no idea how the hell I wanted to end that chapter. No idea. Zero idea. That the ending where like humans get like warped in and try to like take over the temple, that was entirely improvised. Entirely. Because I had no clue how I wanted to. I knew I wanted to end it with a conflict, but I wanted it to be a conflict with humans. But no idea how to do it. So I thought about like, what if I just had humans come in to try and take the temple? Wouldn't that be something? And yeah, I jumped the shark with it. But you know what? It didn't even work. It's like, it's still equally as pointless, right? But sorry, I'm just laughing at my own writing. But at the end of part 3, there's a scene with Moon and Grift on like a back balcony, back porch, whatever, where they have like this almost pseudo romantic talk. And that was because at some point I thought, you know what, maybe Grift and Moon, maybe they get together and maybe they become a couple. But then I thought about it more, and I thought, no, neither Moon nor Grift probably are into commitments. So, Moon's already in a commitment to Iris, so like, just not a romantic one. But I scrapped that. The Moon and Grift romance arc was scrapped in favor in favor of Grift just having all of these friends rather than having a romantic interest in there. Because like, I could have easily tried to do the same thing with Grift and Sona, But we all know how the hell that wouldn't have worked. We all know very well that wouldn't have worked. Sona is definitely not settling down anytime soon. But speaking of part 3 is actually one of my favorites. It's probably my second favorite part of the 5. With part 4 being my favorite. But part 3 is actually like my second favorite. But it's because I actually really like how the order of events turn out, and how everything kind of flows semi-smoothly into one another. And also, the unresolved plot threads that are in there as well, that I hope that no one digs up. But I'm going to dig up anyway, just because I hate myself. Part 3, they go into, like, this abandoned hospital thing. And they find this, like, Frankenstein guy named Adam. Who basically was captured by this twisted scientist figure, who you find out who she is later. But she's kind of kidnapped by this twisted scientist figure, and these other Carvations are there as well, but they've got one's got a wing amputated, and the other has another wing amputated and their tail cut off. And you just see later they were put onto Adam to function, to basically make an artificial Carvation. It's before they find that in fact she has done that already with others, and she just kept him around, I guess. Why'd she keep him around? No freaking clue. But she kept him around, but she's got basically homegrown Carvations in her basement. And they defeat her, quote unquote defeat her. Grift kind of just freaking mauls her back, and she's like, I'm out of here. And so they free the other Carvations, but they're not really welcome in the village because they're not actual Carvations. Because they don't actually have all the power. They don't actually have the full strength of a Carvation. They have magic, but they're not as strong or have as much endurance. But Grift basically makes a deal with the temple to protect them when they make their own little city in the living, called I think I just very creatively called it New Village. They call it New Village, where all the artificial Carvations live, with Adam as the mayor. Oh yeah, Adam. I've totally forgotten to talk about Adam, because if you look at Adam's story, he's literally just a guy who was roped into this for no reason. If he just wasn't the unlucky schmuck that got kidnapped, he would never have interacted with any of these guys. I think I wrote his backstory in here. I think I wrote somewhere that I wrote somewhere that he actually got he had a BA in English. He doesn't really remember himself that much, but then over the course of the story, he actually goes down and looks for who he used to be. He lived in I think Virginia or West Virginia, had a BA in English. His friends and family just up and thought he was dead or something. It's kind of funny how he just looks back at his life and he's like, yeah, that's I'm not coming back to that, that's a mess. So he's basically just the mayor of New Village, and I like that a lot. And part 4 is where Cyan's favorite character comes in. His therapist, Grift's therapist, Dr. Mantis. And chapter 4 didn't have to be about therapy, but chapter 4 ended up being the therapy chapter. Because I thought, Grift talks about his therapist a lot. Let's actually show his therapist. And I wanted Dr. Mantis to be the cutest and most upbeat and bright person, just so Grift could hate the fuck out of her, because he hates the positivity and energy she radiates. And that's hilarious to me, It's a dramatic irony, she doesn't realize he hates her because of it, but yeah, she was meant to be just this cute little thing, and she ended up being this cute little thing, so that's good. She didn't want to hurt anyone, so she kind of stayed out of, everything. I shouldn't spoil the final chapter. Okay, I think that's it for Carvation Vigilante, actually. We really need to move on. Next, I'm just going to run through all my Inktober stuff, because I liked my Inktober stuff. Now, it may be 30 things, but I'm going to run through them as quick as I can. Dance, really fun. I think Max was, really great in that one. Pink, I think I had this basically almost pre-written. Actually, no, I didn't. No, I really like writing Beatrice and Leisha, so it was really cool. Beans, I don't even know I think this is about depression. Like hell if I know. Music was really cute, actually. I really like music. I'll talk for a second about it. Music, Diane just like giving like kind of like toddler Ben and Sophie like a nice song to sleep, which is Bridge Over Troubled Water, which I one of my favorite songs. Simon Garfunkel nailed it. Next one, Drink. It's actually me rewriting. Kevin and Diane first like really interacting in the coffee shop from How Deep Can I Go. Pirate was just kind of funny because it's just basically Captain Jack Sparrow scene from Pirates of the Caribbean. What can I say? Games. Games was funny actually, because I've never played Zelda, not Spirit Tracks, Phantom Hourglass, and so writing this was just totally a surprise for me. So I read 3 chapters of a Phantom Hourglass manga and thought I was really good because Linebeck was my favorite character. So I played Wind Waker, so I knew the characters, and I think this was just really humorous. Family was actually really cute. It was just Kevin and Daisy wanting to go on this little kind of carnival, which is funny. Warrior is fun. Warrior is actually what I wrote a story based on Warrior. Yeah. I wrote a story based on Warrior, which is the next one that we're gonna do after Inktober. So I'll just keep that one. Animal is just like it was just a bio for the Deflega. Official pronunciation. Pumpkin, just cuteness with Jack and Sebastian. Freak Show is actually a rewrite. It's actually a rewriting of something I did for Faven's Pride Month story. Ghost is just sad. I don't want to go over Ghost. Mind just like a trippy ass dream. Mute is also from no, Mute is not also from the story. Mute is just more, yeah. Playground is just like, I think this actually happened to me one time, where I just fell off a swing and face planted. Trick was funny because I really liked making the tiny playing cards come to life. It's also Iris using trick magic, so Treat was just fun. Treat was just a fun, all the poems I'll say were just fun. They don't have very deep meaning. Skeleton, oof, just Rex torture. Ugh. Twins, I think Twins was already written before I did Inktober, so Monster, yeah, I think Inktober, yeah, Monster was just the typical Beatrice character torture. Glass was also written before this, so Selfie was just typical sibling shenanigans. Yeah, it was written specifically for this, but yeah, Lily Pad, am I right? Cold. This was written before that. Cold was actually going to be a scene in Keeping It Together, but it was thrown out very last minute. Broken? Broken was not written beforehand. Broken was just sad to write. Treasure was cute. Anything with Beatrice and Alicia generally is cute. Goth I didn't know what to do for, because it was Bella. It was Bella, so I'm like, what if it was just the girls being goth? Underwater? What can I say? British people. Light? I had no clue what to do for Light, so it was just this fun little interaction between Max and Avon. And Hero is actually, I lied when I said there's nothing scrapped of Carvation Vigilante, but this is a prologue to Carvation Vigilante almost, where the story itself is supposed to be a mother telling her child the story of Carvation Vigilante, and this is how it starts. But that's it for Inktober. I rushed through that. This is Sai's story, Stepping Out. I don't have a ton to say about this, I'll be honest. It's 2 chapters, it's short, it's very self-contained. It's about Sona, character from Carvation Vigilante, kind of taking Sai under her wing, teaching him how to defend himself, sticking her neck out for him. I really wish I had more to say about this, but it's honestly a very dry story. Not dry an interesting it's cut and dry. What you see is what you get, nothing more, nothing less. I'm really sorry this section is less than a minute long, Cyan. I'm really sorry. I know you liked this one.
but sorry. Overall, I liked writing it, but it's really short, and I just have nothing really to say about it. It's less than 5,000 words, so that should say something for my usual. And our last story for today, The Blossoming Lily, is about, Appa, and then eventually, the creation of his inner woman, lily pad. This one's also kind of personal to me. A lot of it's kind of about, me, but don't tell anyone that. Oh, the secret's out. This story's personal. But I think that this one's kind of interesting to look at, because it provides nothing in terms of world building except for two things. One, Carvations have newspapers, and two, the Carvation Postal Service has one delivery worker who is overworked as hell, but she likes it because this is just her job and she loves it. But back to the story. There's no unused stuff. Yeah, I have an outline. It's nothing special. Yes, the boss of the newspaper company is definitely supposed to be a play of J. Jonah Jameson, from how angry he is and how... I'm sorry if I'm kind of burned out by now, but I've just done a lot of talking, and I'm very tired. This is one of my favorites. The cover is so awesome. I asked for something basic, and he signed gave me this. So who knows? Basic is not basic anymore. But overall, I think very fondly of this one. I kind of liked it. I had to struggle to finish it, but I really do look back at this one fondly. I think I will look back fondly. But I think that's it for this one, and now we can move on to some stuff for the future. Alright, now for some stuff for the future. Alright, so the nearest release that you're going to see is Carvation Vigilante, Chapter 5, the final part that will finish off the story, finally. It's going to be 6 parts, the longest one yet, I think. And no one's going to be surprised with that, right? It's been known. But then, starting January 25th, I'm going to be starting to release my own rewriting of How Deep Can I Go? It's not going to be like drastically changing events, right? There'll be some things that are extremely changed in a few places, but overall it's going to be mainly the same. Just mainly touched up writing and maybe having details known of the future, I can serve it better so that the story of that fits more cleanly next to keeping it together, chronologically. And also later this year, I'm hopefully going to start releasing another story about Diane and the people in her life, and it's going to be about Diane's eventual death. So I don't have a name for that story yet, so I'm just going to call it Diane's death story for now. And How Deep Can I Go, Keeping It Together, and Diane's death story are basically going to form this little trilogy about Diane. I think that would be cool, So you'll see How Deep Can I Go in late January, and Diane's death story hopefully later this year. A smaller thing I'm going to be writing, A Study of Carvations Volume 2. I have it set that I should finish it by late January, about the time when How Deep Can I Go starts coming out. So if I can finish it by then, and at some point Cyan can make it into a comic, but who knows when that'll be down the line. It's not the most important project by any means. So now the last thing I got, not the last thing, but the next thing I gotta talk about is this AU thing I'm doing. I'm making a universe, an AU universe. Kind of like if you ever know DC, Earth 2. Everything's slightly different, and that's basically what I'm doing. That I'm making my own little universe where things are just slightly different. And sometimes things are not slightly different, they are extremely different. The first story I'm going to be putting out will be a story about basically what if Beatrice was nice? Kind of like a what if story, That'll be coming out in late March. Look forward to that one. Other stories I have lined up for this, I have lined up a story about basically how deep can I go. I have another one for the Trio of Idiots. That's the next one I'm working on right now, actually, the Trio of Idiots one. That's a very interesting one. Also on there, Iris and Leisha. If Iris never got punished by the temple, what would have they been like? The last thing I have to talk about is a story that's even farther in the works than Diane's death story. And it's the story of Lizzie. Basically, her story, what her life was like, it's bound to be interesting, trust me. I've started writing rudimentary outlines and drafting of it, but nothing big because I know I'm not going to be like actually writing it very soon. But just know that is planned in the works. Her canon story, not the story where she was raised by Beatrice and Leisha. That's not canon. But as for that is all of my talk about future works. If you have any suggestions for something you might want me to write, go ahead and comment it down below, I guess. I may take my time to write it because I like writing fun little things sometimes on the side. It's just what I do. But that's all for future stuff right now, so let's get on to the outro. Okay, this was a fun time doing. So I appreciate you all who read my stories, because I love writing stories, and I appreciate you all who watch my videos. I'll always be writing more content. That's kind of just a given, and as long as you guys are there to read it, I'm kind of happy, you know. This has been a really great year for my writing. I've been really motivated to be writing and to do all this stuff, you know. And even when times got hard, you know, writing was just really good. Because I knew I was writing something and it would make other people happy, which is all most people want to do when they do stuff like this. So I'm glad I could do that. There's not much for this outro, but you know, I have writing commissions open now. I do daily writing. All these story chapters or story chapter dubs now, you know. As for the future videos on my channel, I'll probably have a few, maybe some music ones if I want to do that. Maybe I can dub one of Cyan's other comics. I'm uncertain about it though, but we'll see. Thank you for watching, and have a great day. Maybe check out another video. Check out Cyanimations. He's awesome. Very special thanks to him. And I'll see you guys later.